Yo, what's good everyone? 5.3's out in a few days, and with the release of 4 new characters and even some weapons, a lot of units are getting buffed. Stick around for the whole video because there are some unexpected surprises. Apologies I didn't do pre-release guides. I've been busy with Christmas and New Year and thought I'd cut down on Genshin for a few weeks. I think that's healthy. But I'm back. Let's get straight into it with a character we all have, Traveler. MC's getting the pyro element. Will they be any good? Worst case scenario, they can hold 4-piece scroll. If you're not going for mavuika, that's going to be useful in some teams. Firstly, Chevrolet's teams benefit from Pyro MC. 4-piece scroll is going to give everyone a 40% electro and pyro damage bonus, which in Cloran teams for example will be massive. Kinich can use Pyro MC as well in a team like Kinich, Emily and Bennett. Give him a sack sword so you can avoid the long skill cooldown and you're good to go. Pyro MC's C1 also increases the on-fielder's damage by 15% if they're in the Night Soul Blessing state, which is actually decent. It's worth swapping Xiangling out for, given the fact Xiangling wasn't dealing much damage anyway. Also, Mualani teams won't need Xiangling on 300 energy recharge anymore. The downside though is you might need Dendro to get a burning aura going so Mualani can vape. Overall, I think Pyro Traveler is actually a decent addition to the game. They'll obviously get overshadowed by mavuika's damage, but being able to provide almost as much utility as an Archon, and completely free, does mean players that choose to skip mavuika aren't punished for it. Mualani isn't only getting one teammate with Pyro MC, but a second with mavuika. Mavuika rides a motorbike, Mualani rides a shark. Makes sense we try them together. I don't know about you, but I don't like swapping my Xiangling's artifacts around a lot. With a needing around 300 energy recharge to get a burst back regularly in Mualani teams, it means I don't run them together and often means I just end up not running Mualani at all. Mavuika changes that, and while I don't think she's a perfect support for Mualani, I do feel like she's the best we have in the game right now, and she's good enough that running her with a Dendro unit keeps a burning aura on enemies for Mualani to vape all her hairs. Having a few Natlan units in the team means Mualani gets more burst damage from a passive too. Another unit we mentioned earlier is Kinich. He had a similar thing that Mualani had in that you'd run Xiangling despite it not being perfect just so you could get enough off-field pyro application. Mavuika does that though with a buff to the on-fielder, more damage than Xiangling, and she doesn't need energy for a burst. Kinich's Night Soul consumption will be more than enough to give a burst uptime. Kinich's Natlan passive gives him more skill damage than more teammates trigger Night Soul burst, so having Mavuika in there in place of Dia or Xiangling is a nice benefit. There's also the option to swap out Emily for Farina if you want to. In terms of artifacts, you could stick 4-piece Deepwood on Emily and 4-piece Scroll on mavuika to drive Kinich's damage higher, maybe try Deepwood on mavuika, or you could just give mavuika 4-piece Codex to push her damage higher and forget about Scroll. Either way, this team's leaving your enemies dead where they stand like Tupac. What, too soon? It's also worth mentioning mavuika's weapon works well on Kinich. I wouldn't pull it specifically for him because his signature's still better, but if you're going for it anyway, it's nice that it'll work on him. Next up is Chaska. I was gonna make a joke about Hine and Quaichi, but so soon after the Tupac joke would probably be a bit raw. That wouldn't make sense either. Quaichi is anything but raw with how bad she got cooked in 5.1. I would say Chaska needs more support. On her release, her best team was Auroron, Farina and Bennett. The release of both mavuika and Citlali gives her a few options though. Citlali is always kicking off with Auroron, so it's fitting that she kicks him out the team. Cryo in for Electro means we can get some melts off, which is appreciated. Citlali as a sustain means we can swap Bennett out for mavuika for buffs and sub DPS damage. Citlali is also going to buff Pyro and Hydro damage, which benefits all 3 of the damage dealers in this team. There's also resistance to interruption. On top of all this, if you want to, you could give Citlali Thrilling Tales and buff one of Chaska or mavuika. Stacking the team with Natlan units also gives each character more from their passive. Mavuika gets more fighting spirit for a burst damage and the buff she gives Chaska. Chaska can trigger the extra instance of damage from her passive more often, and Citlali gets more Night Soul points to keep his skill going. Let's give Gaming some love because he's getting a buff in 5.3 with the release of Citlali. As of right now, realistically his only good team is a vape team with Farina. Now with Citlali you can go with Bennett, Xianyon and Citlali for a melt team. Gaming's gonna do massive damage with him melting rather than vaping. Citlali gives a massive pyro damage bonus from 4-piece Scroll, as well as pyro resistance shred from a passive. There's also the option to go with C6 Diona over Xianyon for the cryo resonance and the 200 elemental mastery to Gaming. I imagine most people are choosing Lanyan from the Lantern Rite event, but for those that choose Gaming, him getting a new 5-star to play with is a big win. I'm lucky enough to have his C6, but I barely play him because Farine is so in demand. I think that's a shame because, critical as I am of a lot of the designs, I actually think Gaming is one of the better 4-star designs in the game. Having another team to use him in will almost feel like getting a new character. Citlali can hold thrilling tails too to give him another big attack buff. You could be forgiven for thinking this isn't a good patch for Arlecchino with us having a new pyro DPS in mavuika, but that's not the case. Citlali will enable some solid melt comps for Arlecchino, and if you want to run mono pyro, Lanyan isn't a bad addition to the game for it either. As you know by now, Arlecchino can't be healed by her teammates, only by her own burst. Given the fact it's not the most reliable method of sustainability, she prefers a shield. Both Citlali and Lanyan offer this, and with their own benefits for Arlecchino's damage. Firstly, Lanyan can hold Viridescent Venera to reduce the opponent's resistance to pyro. If you're running Kazuha on the other side of the abyss, or maybe you just want the comfort, it's nice to have a character that can work well with it, even if your Lanyan's just a C0 pick from Lanternrite. If you're running Arlecchino with a Hydro character, Lanyan's C4 will give some elemental mastery too, which is always appreciated. Citlali buffs the team's pyro damage through 4-piece scroll, reduces the opponent's resistance to pyro through a passive, as well as applying a bit of cryo so Arlecchino can melt some of the hits. They're both catalyst users too, so you could go for supportive weapons like Citlali's signature, Thrilling Tails, or Wandering Evenstar. Another character that didn't need a buff but seems to get one every patch anyway is Neuvillette. Most people run him in a team consisting of Farina, Kazuha, and then one of Xilonen or Zhongli. There are debates over which sustain unit to choose. Some believe the offensive benefits of Xilonen are more valuable while others opt for Zhongli's shield. Neuvillette has shit resistance to interruption, so what good are the offensive buffs if your charge attacks keep getting interrupted? Citlali gives us another option. She has a strong shield, albeit not as strong as Zhongli's. Her 20% Hydro resistance shred is the same as his, and she can also give a 40% Hydro damage bonus from 4-piece scroll. Xilonen can shred resistances by another 16%, but she doesn't have a shield. Citlali is a best of both worlds option that provides both offense and sustainability while only compromising a little on each. It's also worth noting that while bosses can't be frozen, a lot of standard enemies can, and that just adds another little layer of comfort. Neuvillette being the Hydro Dragon and Citlali having a dragon plushie is a nice little synergy too. Lanyan's a free-to-play option for Neuvillette havers that might not have both a Xilonen and Zhongli and want to use whichever one they do have on the other half of the abyss. The fact that she can hold Viridescent Venera is useful to free up Kazuha too. She also offers a little bit of grouping, and even though it's not as much as Kazuha's, I think Neuvillette's AoE is good enough that you'll manage anyway, especially in most single target situations. With us having so many pyro DPSs, it's easy to forget about Linny. His passive wanting 3 pyro units in the team pushes him down a mono pyro path with little options, but this patch is getting 4. A lot of people run in with Bennett for the obvious benefits, and if you go in with Bennett, Xiangling becomes an easy flex option, but I think Xiangling and Linny have anti-synergy. Xiangling wants you to be near enemies to hit them with a pyro nado, while Linny wants a bit of distance. mavuika as a sub DPS can replace Xiangling's damage, then you can use the flex slot on another Natlan support to charge mavuika's burst up. That could be a Roron Xilonen, Pyro MC, or Citlali holding 4-piece scroll. Citlali's shield gives Linny some much needed interruption to resistance, as well as some cryo application for melt. Lanyan's another shield option. She can replace Kazuha holding 4-piece Viridescent Venera, and both her and Citlali can hold Thrilling Tails for the attack buff. Bear in mind Kazuha's grouping has massive benefits though. Linny's skill and burst deal big damage with few instances, so if you're in a multi-target situation, you want the enemies grouped up so you can hit them all at the same time and get the most value out of Linny's kit. I still prefer the other pyro DPSs, but Linny's definitely one of the winners from this patch. Overall, 5.3 is looking like a good patch for those that pulled the earlier Natlan characters, and definitely a good patch for those going for mavuika or Granny. I'm a big fan of us having 2 new 5-stars, which we haven't had since 5.0. If you like this video, I'm dropping team comp videos for mavuika and Citlali when 5.3 arrives, as well as one for Lanyan for the second half of the patch. Subscribe to the channel if you're interested in those, and take it easy.